Welcome. You have reached review time with Imperial, and today's review is Civil War. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. Let's get into it. Let's go over the cast. So, for starters, we have Kirsten Dunst plays as Lee, Wagner Moore plays as Joel, Nelson Lee plays as Tony, McKinley Henderson plays as Sammy, Kaylee Spiney plays as Jesse. It's pretty much the main characters in the film who they follow. So basically, this film is about a civil war that breaks up, and kind of like the group that attacked on January 6th. If that type of group really expanded and it went full pledge. So in the future, somewhere in the near future, a civil war broke out. The president came on the announcement and said a speech. But by this time, you got the groups from Texas and California is making their way to D.C. Now, the civil war broke out all over the U.S. And of course, with no law, all types of stuff is going to take place and happen. And basically, you're going to have to fend for yourself. And you're going to people that's going to take matters in their own hand. It's going to be a bunch of different groups. So it's kind of like if you watch zombie apocalypse movies and everything goes to crap, you still got the military there, but you got a whole bunch of different groups that develop on their own. But these groups in a small town develop on their own, and they have wars amongst themselves. And then you got one group that's making their way to DC. This journalist group, their mission in this movie is to take pictures of everything. So Kirsten Dunst's character, her name is Lee. So she's a vet journalist, a photographer that's been in plenty of different big wars where she then took pictures, and she's decorated and everybody respects her. So they get this SUV, and put press on it. So they're supposed to like give them a pass, like all this stuff got to be recorded, and people are not supposed to bother them, especially the soldiers that they run into and stuff like that. So it's a lot of different events like that. Meanwhile, they got their group of journalists, and then you have Jessie, who's an up and coming journalist, and she admires Lee, and she wants to go along with the ride, and she's basically taking pictures the whole time. So that's what this movie is built off. Their journey from New York to DC, and all the different things they experience, all the different pictures they take, all the different scenarios that they come upon with the war and people and towns and shooting and stuff like that. And the original crew that they set out with, everybody starts getting plucked off by the time they get to the end. Now, there's a scene that in the trailers that's going out where towards the end, and so there's a character who I mentioned named Tony. He was in the SUV with another one of his friends in Jesse. All three of them was in one SUV, and then the other SUV was Lee, Sammy, and Joel. So they got ahead of them. So by the time they caught up with them, they seen that it was a problem. So Sammy, he's the older one out the group, and already from the first scene I seen him in, I said, "Oh, he's not gonna last." So he kept talking about how he was old, and on top of being old, I just said, "Okay, yeah, he's not gonna last." So he made it to this scene, and he pretty much was telling Lee and Joel, like, "This ain't good. This sounds like death. We need to turn around." They pretty much like no, because they know Jesse is in the car with Tony and Tony's friend. So they get pulled over by these soldiers that's basically are militia group that's acting out on their own. So it's the scene, they asking them, "Are y'all American?" And once they say you are American, they pretty much say, "What kind of American are you?" And so you got Tony and his friend at their mercy. So the friend gets killed from the gate. Then he goes and asks Jesse, he asks Joel, and he asks Lee. Sammy stayed back in the SUV and asks them like where they from. So they said Missouri, Florida, and I think Colorado. And when he asked Tony, of course, Tony's Asian, he said Hong Kong, and he killed him. So right at that moment, this guy looks like he's going to kill the rest of them, but Sammy comes in the car and he rams them, hits the two men out, and told the rest of them, Jesse, Joel, and Lee, to jump in the car. Now at this site, they had a dumpster truck full of bodies. So that, this is the scene that everybody keeps talking about. And as they was pulling off, as Sammy was pulling off, one of the men got a hold of the gun and began to shoot at the vehicle. They drove many miles down the road, and Sammy was like, "Hey, we gotta pull over." And they like, "No, we can't." He said, "We got to," but he was hit. So at that moment he was going to bleed out and die. By the time they made it to their destination, he did bleed out and die, and it was of course a sad moment. Jessie, she's a kid, and she got to witness that. So they finally made it to DC, got flown to DC, and their mission was to get a interview with the president before his reign was over. And they went in there with some soldiers, and as they went in with some soldiers, they was trying to make their way to the president, and it was just a bunch of gun shooting and fighting leading up to this point. And at this moment, it's only Jesse, Lee, and Joel left. And it's just a sequence of them following the soldiers and them taking pictures while the soldiers is shooting back and forth. So it's just, if you could be entertained by that depending on what you into and what you like. And from there, eventually what happens, while Jesse is taking pictures, and of course she looked up to Lee, Lee gets shot and killed, and Jesse's left on the ground snapping pictures of Lee, her final moments as she was dying after she got shot. Then Joel finally came in and grabbed Jesse, and that's pretty much the end of the film at that moment. So depends on this film will be talked about. Could depending on what you went to, how much you liked it. Out of my 4-star rating system, I give this movie a 2 out of 4 stars. It was something to watch once, but not rewatch, in my opinion. Too much dialogue going on, and yeah, so it's not really a war movie, but it's some action, and you can follow it. And it's just basically showing you what it could be like if something like this were to take place. And, groups will develop on their own, and it'll be every man for themselves. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. Till next time.